Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Ether Hub. I'm Simon, bringing you another Magic the Gathering story. This is it, guys, the conclusion to this newest Innistrad arc. From what started in Midnight Hunt, we discover the final fate of Innistrad with Crimson Vow. Now, in our previous episode, which you can find linked on your screen right now or down in the description below, the final fight to stop the schemes of Olivia Voldaren was waged. With the vampire menace being defeated but not extinguished, Innistrad still stands in complete darkness. With the ancient relic, the Moonsilver Key, retrieved, our heroes are on the final push to restore the dawn to Innistrad. But, all throughout, something else, something bigger pulls at the mind of Teferi. Another, much more immediate threat weighs heavy on the Time Mage. As this is the epic finale to Crimson Vow and Midnight Hunt, as well as being another Friday Night Lore episode, be sure to stay till the end of the video to find out what grand prize you could win by entering this FNL giveaway. Remember guys, the Ether Hub is in the final 10,000 push for 100,000 subscribers. So please, if you enjoy the content, consider supporting our videos by leaving a like, becoming a subscriber, and sharing it with friends. Now let's move on to the lore with the final story of Crimson Vow Chapter 13, written by K. Arsenalt Rivera, Dawnbreak and Future Threats. The Moonsilver Key lends weary feet new speed. The whole way from Stenzia to Kessig, they take no breaks, make no stops. Teferi's efforts to speed them further leave him exhausted. By the time they arrive, he's fast asleep within the carriage. Every step is hard won, every step is a victory, but all will mean nothing if the ritual isn't completed. Catilda assures them they still have a chance. Her spirit bound to the Moonsilver Key as it is, she's followed them on their journey. Kaya keeps her company for most of the trip, but Arlinn has questions for her too. How can we be sure it'll work? How can you be sure it won't? Says Catilda. Being a spirit must make you more inclined to mystery, not less. I just like to be sure of things, Arlinn answers. They're walking through the woods, most of the others asleep in a carriage. Adeline's charger has taken up the yoke, along with Kaya's borrowed gelding. They're the only ones awake of the whole group, the Cathar, the wolf, and the spirit. You don't know yourself very well, Catilda answers. If you acted only when you were certain, you wouldn't be here, now would you? They say the worst dog bites come from pups you raise with your own two hands. Arlinn winces. Her eyes fall on the carriage again. She thinks of everyone within it. Chandra curled up on one of the benches, Kaya somehow asleep leaning against the wall, Teferi taking the other bench, and all along the floor, her wolves slumbering peacefully, their bellies full. Were you certain of them? The question startles her from her thoughts. Arlinn glances toward Catilda. Of course I was. Some of the strongest mages around, how could I not be? You knew I don't mean the mages. Another wince. There's no fooling witches, is there? Sorin had his own reasons for wanting to help us. He's made his mistakes, but at the end of the day, he loves Innistrad as much as I do. I knew he'd come around. Left unspoken is that Sorin didn't make the journey with them. He said there were things to which he still needed to attend. Cryptic as always. She suspected it wasn't just brooding on his part this time. He stayed behind to help them attend to the fallen and to the injured. Anyone who needed long-term support was moving into Markov Manor for a few months. He insisted it was only because he had access to medical techs the others could only dream of. And maybe it was. Or maybe it was something else, and he just didn't want to admit it. Thus, I have other matters to attend to. Thinking of it does bring a smile to her face. She knew there was a heart in there somewhere, but the smile shrinks at Catilda's next needle. You also know I didn't mean him either. The woods are lovely at night, the scent of pine clear and bracing like good whiskey. Arlinn lets it linger in her nose for a little while. There's a day coming where you won't have to ask that question, she says. A day many years past the Harvesttide Massacre, Catilda says, her spectral form flickers. He'll pay for what he's done, she says. That's the real question here, she's sure of it. Once all this is taken care of, I'll start tracking him down. And yet, how will he pay? Catilda asks. What currency can he give us for the lives he's taken? You are a human who wears the skin of a beast. He is a beast, no matter the shape he wears. It isn't the conversation she wanted to have. Still, it needs saying. Tovolar rebuilt the Mondronan Howpack out of fear, Arlinn begins. He'll tell you there are other reasons, but at the end of the day, it's fear. Too many of his friends walk the same line I do, and they got killed for it, no matter how good they were. There's a man lumbering ahead of her in the woods. He doesn't talk much. He doesn't need to. They understand each other. Arlinn pushes the memory aside. When you're a werewolf, you're never just yourself. It doesn't matter who you are, people will assume things about you. You're responsible for any villager any wolf has ever killed. And you don't want to be. You're afraid. You run. You find a pack. They don't judge you for what you are, and they tell you it's okay to be that way. That you have to be because otherwise, humans will kill you. And they're right enough that most people never have a second thought. Averbrook through a wolf's eyes. Her parents wondering where she's gone. A secret she can't share. It isn't until you get some distance that you realize you're wrong. There is another path. It's not an easy one by any means. You've got to change what you expect about humans, and humans have to change what they expect about you, but it's there. If everyone can agree to work toward a different world, we can build one step by step. Each of us, a brick. It'll take years, decades maybe, but we can get there. Still, when you're a werewolf, you worry about right now. What you're going to eat, who's hunting you, and what you're doing to stay safe during the day. It's hard sometimes to see the bigger picture, and harder to feel connected to it. Tovolar around the fire, staring at her as if she'd grown a second head. I told him all of this years ago. I told him there was another way. He didn't believe me. To him, humans will never change. They'll always think we're monsters. So why not be monsters? Why keep ourselves from his idea of greatness? She swallows. Something like Harvestide doesn't come from nowhere. If you ask him, he'd say there are 100 times more wolves that have died over the years. That Harvestide was only the beginning. The words taste disgusting, even as she speaks them. Arlinn can't imagine a worldview she disagrees with more. Yet, even still, you asked what justice looks like there. Tell you the truth, I'm not sure. How do you punish someone who lives their whole life in fear and anger without stoking those flames? I want him to pay for what he's done, but I want him to get better too. I want him to see that there is another way, that we can work together toward a better day. But Harvestide sets us back decades. It will make humans more likely to kill us, not less. Arlinn takes another breath of cool air. It brings her less clarity than she'd like. You asked me if I was sure he'd come. I wasn't, she admits. But I thought that if he did, he'd see that we can all work together. I wanted him to see that if he helped, people would be grateful, that we wouldn't have to fight. I thought it was important. Catilda, floating beside her, looks up to the moon. For a long while, neither of them say anything. The weight of her speech settled across her own shoulders, heavier than a bearskin. To be honest, she hadn't thought any of it through. She just said what her heart felt. Now that her mind's had a chance to hear it, she's still processing. She's not sure she's ever going to be done sorting through it. Do you think it helped? Catilda asks. And the answer is as obvious as it is hard to say. Each syllable wrung from her like water from a rag. I don't know, but I had to try. I would give you advice, Arlinn, Catilda says. Arlinn rolls her shoulders. Let's hear it. It's admirable not to forget the man behind the crimes, she says, but nor should you forget the crimes themselves. Whatever your hopes for Tovolar, he's betrayed them as often as he's fulfilled them. One day, you're going to have to reckon with that. It won't be enough to simply hope for better. Again, each word a needle. Arlinn closes her eyes. The earth is cool and springy beneath her feet. It is night on Innistrad, and they are on the way to save it. I know, she says. I know. So, we're sure this is going to work, right? Says Chandra. Arlinn smirks. Yes, we're sure. She stands at the center of the Celestis, the others gathered on one of its outer arms. Ketilda is before her, returned now to her rightful body. In Arlinn's hands is the sun gold lock, along with the blood and offering from before the ritual's sudden interruption. The moon silver key, token of victory, sits in the witch's hands. A faint magical glow surrounds her. Root and soul, blood and fang, she intones, and it is not her voice, but the voices of all the gathered witches, the voice of the plane itself. Let Innistrad stand united beneath the warmth of the sun. Raised by the joined magic of the Dawnheart Coven, the moon silver key floats toward the sun gold lock. Arlinn holds it aloft, just as she's been instructed. Part of her worries that it won't fit, that they've gotten a duplicate. But that worry dies the instant gold meets silver. A flash of light floods the Celestis, yet not a frightening one. It's warm as sunlight, warm as promises, and Arlinn's skin is happy to drink it in. She doesn't even have to close her eyes. All around them, the Celestis roars to life, shaking off centuries of overgrowth. Some of the trees still cling as the arms begin to rotate. Arlinn's never seen a tree clear over her head before, and admittedly, it fills her with a childlike sense of joy. So too does the sight of her companions scrambling from their arm to another before they fall off. It happens so slowly they aren't in any real danger, especially not with Teferi around, but it's funny nonetheless. The rim, thankfully, is far more stationary. With each passing of the arms overhead, the light around them increases in intensity. Eventually, only a single column remains, running from this very platform to the moon itself. It's difficult to watch it and feel anything but eternal. Arlinn can't think of anything to say. She thinks there isn't anything to say at all about this. Sometimes you just have to shut up and appreciate what's happening. Appreciate the absurdity of life itself. A blacksmith's daughter stands beneath an ancient device and watches day return to Innistrad. When the light fades, and it is long in fading, the moon itself already begun her descent, sinking like a dropped coin beneath the waves of the horizon. Next to her, she hears Ketilda picking up the key. Arlinn raises a brow. Don't you need that? Ketilda looks up at the sky. If all goes well, not for another 1,000 years. There is another here who has greater need of it. Best not to argue with witches. As the moon sinks below the horizon, Arlinn walks with Ketilda toward the rim of the Celestis. There, the others are sitting, their legs hanging over the edge. Ahead of them, the Kessig woods run on and on and on. She knows every inch of them as well as she knows her own skin. She knows what they look like in the night, in the morning, and in the precious dawn hours, when every bough is painted pink. Yet, the thought of seeing all of this again is almost enough to bring her to tears. She sits among them, her friends, and her wolves quickly surround her. Patience lays in her lap. Ketilda joins them too. Together they watch the first sunrise over Innistrad in months. It is the same as every other sunrise, but therein lies the beauty. Every single sunrise is a gift. It is something that defies expectation, something that almost defies belief. Every morning a golden ball of fire crests the horizon, and that act alone is enough to bring light to the world. It is the first sunrise in months. It is like every other sunrise, and it is all the more perfect for that. Cheers erupt the moment the sun finally shows itself. Arlinn can't keep from joining in, the joy as golden in her soul as the disc they're celebrating. Even the wolves join in, howling for once at the sun. Lovers kiss, friends link arms. Ancient songs with familiar melodies lift the spirits of the attendees. And of course, there is drink. Someone slips a goblet into Arlinn's hand almost without her noticing. The spiced wine is warm against her skin even through its container, and warmer still when it blooms across her chest. But there's a coldness that follows it as she realizes it's time for the others to go. In the gathered crowd, now a party, she finds her friends. Chandra and Adeline come first. She finds them, just as she expected, secreted away beneath the boughs of a willow tree. A veil of leaves keeps the secret of their parting. Arlinn can't hear what they're saying from here either, only just barely making out their embrace. It feels right to stay at this distance. Chandra will find her later to say goodbye, but for now, best to let them have this moment. She's only gone a few steps away when she hears Kaya. Spying, huh? Didn't think you had it in you. I just wanted to check in on them, Arlinn says. Sure you did, Kaya answers. She crosses her arms, looking toward the willow. Didn't figure she'd like this place so much. Innistrad's more than doom and gloom, Arlinn says. I hope you found that too. Kaya smirks. Maybe. Or maybe I don't mind doom and gloom, she says. It's been nice working with you, Arlinn. Nice working with you too, Arlinn says. I hope it's not the last time. Of course not. There's a lot of ghosts here with unsettled business. I'm sure you'll need my expertise before long. Just remember, I don't work for free, she says. Sure you don't, Arlinn says, smirking. But Kaya's already shimmering out of existence. Teferi isn't far either, and he has company. Catilda's with him. As Arlinn approaches, they both turn toward her. In Teferi's hand is the Moonsilver key. Ah, so you're the one who needs the key, Arlinn says. Teferi smirks. She's been kind enough to lend me the key. Moonsilver has a number of fascinating properties, particularly for temporal magic. I hope it serves you well then, she says. But remember, you've got to return it or I'll hunt you down. Teferi smiles and hugs her. I'd never escape a wolf on my tail. It's been good to see you, Arlinn. And good to see you too, she says. But there's something hanging in the air, something yet unsaid. Teferi holds her at arm's length, searching for the words. Bad news? Arlinn asks. Might be. You're going to have to keep an eye out. We've had trouble lately. Old trouble. That means something, coming from you, Arlinn says. She hopes a bit of levity will make things easier, but Teferi isn't cheered at all. I know better than most how serious the threat is. They're called Phyrexians. If you see any strange black oil, beings of flesh and metal, anything strange at all, let the rest of us know. I had hoped we might find a clue during this endeavor, but it turned out well. This key is promising. Teferi once spoke of a plane he'd known before, a place he'd failed. From the look in his eyes, she had the feeling the two were related. Something might be coming. Be certain you're ready for it. I will, she says. No matter what, Innistrad will endure. He smiles at her again, but with only a shadow of his usual mirth. It's in good hands, isn't it? Take care, Arlinn. Soon, he too fades. She knows the Kessig woods, but they call to her, all the same, the light now filtering through the leaves of evergreens. Snow falls like flower petals upon the forest. The air is bright with the scent of winter. Even though her friends will soon be gone, Arlinn Kord has her pack. And there you guys have it, the finale to Crimson Vow's storyline that started all the way back with Midnight Hunt. If you guys don't mind, I'd like to share some of my initial thoughts on the story overall. Firstly, I'm not going to sit here and say it was dreadful, because honestly, compared to some of the stories in modern MTG, the arc of Midnight Hunt and Crimson Vow were pretty decent. But I also think it stops there. Now, I'm not a professional writer, and I can never say how a story should or should not have been written. But when handling a plane like Innistrad, I think a lot more of the dark versus light element could have been explored. They are two aspects of this world, neither strictly good or bad, but each meeking out survival. Instead, we got a pretty flat scheme that was more personal in nature. Still, all things considered, the writing was a step in the right direction. Maybe not a massive leap forward, but a step nonetheless. If you guys want me to go down and discuss all of my thoughts on the story from the plot to character development, let me know in the comment section. If there's interest, then I'll certainly share those in another video. I'm actually sort of relieved that this is the final story for Crimson Vow. I've been a little Innistraded out lately, and I'm happy to see we can move on to some new topics. I'm looking to return to some longer form videos, especially on planes like Alara. I love doing those large, comprehensive histories, but I've been bogged down with these narrative videos. So look forward to those coming between sets. The massive takeaway from Crimson Vow, and by extension Midnight Hunt, are the final lines of Teferi, the ominous threat of the Phyrexians who are again placed at the center of the current story direction. Much like War of the Spark, we're seeing a slow buildup of this threat, the presence of the Phyrexians without any real direct involvement, a passing attack on Kaldheim, the lingering thoughts of Teferi or Karn. Eventually, it'll build up into a massive story a la Marvel's Endgame. While Kaldheim gave us a look at the Phyrexians' plans, Crimson Vow showed us a potential weapon the heroic planeswalkers could use in the Moonsilver Key. How can it be used? Beats me, but Teferi thinks it'll hold importance. And so the blocks keep building towards this epic confrontation with New Phyrexia. Thanks for sticking with this video for this long. With Crimson Vow now over, I think you all in the Vorthos army deserve a little something for your support. Today, for Friday Night Lore, I'll be giving away a bundle for both Crimson Vow and Midnight Hunt. And I will be choosing 2 winners, respectively. So one FNL winner will receive the Midnight Hunt bundle, and the other will receive a Crimson Vow bundle. To enter for your chance to win FNL, just leave a like on this video, become a subscriber, and leave a comment on this video. I will choose 2 random comments, and then pin my own comment announcing them as such. So make sure you come back and check it out to find out if you've won. Remember guys, we are in the final push for 100,000 subs here on the Ether Hub, and anything you can do to get us there would be greatly appreciated. With the final 10,000 countdown, simply liking and sharing this video will go a long way in helping to grow our community. And of course, you will always have my gratitude. As always, thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, see ya!